The day I went up the mountain, everything felt ordinary, almost peaceful. Morning mist wrapped itself like a white shroud around the slopes, the distant sound of a waterfall echoed faintly, and the air was filled with the damp, earthy scent of pine. My elder brother and I laughed, wandered, took photos, and enjoyed the silence of nature. Nothing seemed out of place, but on the way back, something changed. A strange heaviness began to creep into my chest. It felt as if I was no longer alone, as though unseen footsteps mirrored mine, following just close enough for me to feel their weight. But when I turned, there was only empty air, only trees swaying with the wind. Each step downhill filled me with unease. I could almost sense a pair of invisible eyes boring into me. The mountain breeze carried more than air, it carried whispers, faint and chilling. Once, I even felt a cold breath brush the back of my neck. I spun around sharply, no one was there, and yet, a sharp coldness lingered on my skin, like the ghost of a hand that had never touched me. When night fell, the dread thickened. Even after returning home, that sensation didn't leave me. It was as if something had followed me back from the mountain, something that did not belong here, an unseen presence that walked without footsteps, yet I could feel it pacing around me every moment. I stared out the window again and again. The courtyard outside was dark. Shadows stretched long under the pale moonlight. For a moment, I was sure I saw a figure standing still among the trees, a tall silhouette, unmoving. But when I blinked, it was gone. That night, I decided to sleep in the same room as my elder brother. Normally, his sleep was fragile, and the slightest noise would wake him. But that night, he remained unnervingly still, lost in a sleep that seemed unnatural. His chest rose and fell, but his face was blank, expressionless, as if he wasn't truly there with me. I lay on my bed, every nerve tense. It sounded as if someone was walking around the house. Slow, deliberate footsteps that stopped just outside the door. My breath caught in my throat. Each time I closed my eyes, I could feel something circling the room, brushing against the silence, waiting. And then came the smell, heavy, damp, suffocating, the stench of raw, half-rotten meat mixed with the earthy odor of wet soil. It seeped into the room, crawling into my lungs, making my skin crawl. I sat up in terror, glancing at my brother, but he slept on, utterly unmoving, as though some unseen grip held him down. That was the moment I realized the mountain had not let me go. Something from there had followed me home. Something unseen, but very much alive, was inside my house. The first night after returning from the mountain was when the silence of my home stopped feeling like safety and began to feel like a trap. I remember lying on the bed beside my elder brother. He had always been a light sleeper. Small noises, the creak of a door, even the hum of a fan could make him stir. But that night, his chest rose and fell in a rhythm too deep, too unnatural, as though he had been drugged into slumber. I could hear his breathing, steady and low, almost mechanical. No matter how many times I whispered his name or nudged his shoulder, he remained still, unresponsive. That was when I heard it, the first sound, a faint shuffle, like bare feet brushing against the floor. I froze, my body stiff under the blanket. The sound came from the corridor, soft, deliberate. Someone was walking from one end of the house to the other. At first, I thought it might be my mother, but the footsteps didn't sound right. They weren't hurried, weren't casual. They dragged, heavy and slow, as if each step was being pressed into the earth with intent. I held my breath, listening. The sound grew clearer. The steps moved past the kitchen, toward the drawing room, then circled back again, as if someone was pacing. My skin prickled. I whispered to my brother again, louder this time, "Wake up, someone's in the house." No reply. He lay frozen in the same position, breathing deep and heavy, as though the footsteps were part of a dream. He couldn't escape. The sound returned, sharper now, like the sudden scurry of someone darting from one room to another. This time, the footsteps were fast, almost running. I sat upright on the bed, my heart pounding. The house felt alive. Every wooden panel, every corner, seemed to throb with the echoes of unseen movement. I pushed the blanket aside, forcing myself to stand. My knees trembled. Slowly, I stepped toward the door of our room. The handle felt icy beneath my fingers. I twisted it, opened the door just enough to peek outside. The corridor was dark, utterly still, no movement. But the air carried a smell, damp, metallic, the faint coppery tang of blood. I swallowed hard. Then bang, something slammed on the far wall. A sharp, violent thud that made the glass in the photo frames rattle. I flinched back, nearly crying out. But when I rushed into the corridor, there was nothing. No one. Only silence. I checked every corner, my pulse screaming inside my skull. The kitchen was empty. The drawing room was empty. The bathroom door was wide open. Nothing. And yet, as I turned back toward my room, the sound began again, this time from behind me. Footsteps. Fast. Running. I spun around. Nothing. The shadows, however, seemed wrong. The corner near the kitchen appeared darker than before, a patch of black that clung to the wall like smoke. It shifted when I looked at it, not disappearing, just moving, slithering, as if it was aware of me. Suddenly, the light bulb in the corridor flickered, just once. But in that brief flash, I thought I saw it. A shape, tall, crooked, standing just beyond the corner. When the light steadied, the corridor was empty. I backed toward my room, breath uneven. "Brother, please wake up," I whispered again as I shook his shoulder violently. His body was warm, but his eyes didn't open. His breathing never changed. It was like he was trapped in a sleep that belonged to someone else. Then it happened again. This time, the sound came not from the corridor, but from inside the house itself, directly above us. Footsteps thudded against the ceiling, not soft this time, but heavy, running from one end of the roof to the other. Back and forth, faster and faster, till the ceiling fan trembled. I screamed. My voice cracked in terror, yet not a single door opened. Not a single member of my family came running. It was as though I was the only one awake inside the house, the only one allowed to hear them. And in the middle of that chaos, the smell returned. Stronger now, blood, rotting meat, and damp soil. It poured into the room, filling my nostrils, coating my tongue. My stomach churned violently. That was when I knew whatever had followed me from the mountain was no longer outside. It was here, inside my home, running through my rooms in the dead of night. And it was only a matter of time before it stepped out of the shadows. That night dragged on like an endless curse. By the time the footsteps faded into silence, I was drenched in sweat, trembling beneath the dim glow of the corridor bulb. I thought maybe it was over, maybe my mind had betrayed me. But then the sound came again, different this time. Not footsteps, something else. A wet sound, a tearing sound, like flesh being ripped apart. My body locked in place. The sound came from the kitchen. I wanted to believe it was nothing, maybe a rat, maybe something falling inside the fridge. But the noise grew sharper, clearer, a wet, crunching bite. The sound of teeth grinding raw flesh. I forced myself forward, each step dragging me toward the kitchen door. My breath was shallow, uneven. The smell hit me first. Thick, metallic. The unmistakable stench of blood mixed with something rotten. The air itself felt heavy, clinging to my skin like grease. The fridge door was open. Its pale, bluish light spilled out across the floor, painting the kitchen tiles with a sickly glow. For a second, I thought the door had simply swung open by itself. But then I saw it. A shadow crouched before the fridge. At first, I thought my eyes were deceiving me. The figure looked like a man, but its proportions were wrong. Too tall even while crouching, shoulders unnaturally broad, arms long and angular like broken branches. Its skin, or what should have been skin, was not skin at all. It was darkness, pure blackness, rippling like smoke, as if it wasn't made of flesh, but of absence itself. And it was eating. Its long hands reached into the fridge, pulling out slabs of raw meat, beef, chicken, I couldn't even tell, and shoving them into a mouth that stretched to wide, far beyond human. I heard the sound of its jaw snapping, bones cracking, teeth grinding into the flesh. Blood dripped from its chin, sizzling as it hit the floor. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. My throat had locked itself shut. My entire body shivered as I clutched the door frame, staring. Then, slowly, it stopped eating. The figure froze, its hand still clutching a piece of raw meat, halfway to its mouth. And then its head turned. Not naturally, no. It jerked sideways with a sickening crack, twisting until its face, or the suggestion of a face, was looking at me. There were no eyes, only two hollows, dark and endless, staring straight into me. I stumbled back. A strangled cry finally escaped my lips. "Brother, wake up, please." No answer. The house remained dead silent. My parents didn't stir. Brother didn't wake. No one came. It was as though the entire house had been erased from existence, leaving me alone with the thing at the fridge. The figure began to rise. Its height grew and grew until its head nearly scraped the ceiling. Its arms dangled low, its fingers long and sharp, dripping with blood. The sound of its breathing filled the kitchen, a deep, guttural growl, wet and animalistic, vibrating through the air. It stepped forward. I screamed again, louder this time, my throat burning. "Help! Please help!" My voice echoed through the house, but no doors opened. No footsteps approached. Nothing. The thing's hand moved faster than I could see. One moment it was by the fridge. The next its black, claw-like fingers were wrapped around my throat. The coldness of its touch was indescribable. Not just cold, but dead. A lifeless chill that seeped into my skin, through my veins, straight into my bones. My body convulsed as its grip tightened. I tried to pull away, to scratch at its arm, but my hands passed through its skin as though it wasn't solid. Yet the pressure on my throat was real, painfully real. My lungs screamed for air. Spots of light burst across my vision as the thing leaned closer, its hollow face inches from mine. And then, finally, my scream ripped free. But it wasn't loud. It wasn't even a scream anymore. It was a choked, broken gasp as the world around me blurred. My voice died in my throat. My legs buckled. My body gave up. The last thing I remember before the darkness swallowed me whole was the weight of those 5 long, black fingers digging into my neck, and the sound of its breath, whispering against my ear like a hiss from another world. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I felt was the air stale, suffocating, clinging to me like damp cloth. My body was heavy. My chest ached, as if I'd been crushed beneath something enormous. At first, I thought I was still trapped in the nightmare. But then, I saw my parents' faces hovering above me. My mother's eyes were wide with panic, her lips trembling as she muttered prayers under her breath. My father gripped my shoulders, shaking me gently, as though afraid I might collapse again. My brother stood frozen at the corner of the room, his expression pale and confused. "Wake up! Wake up!" My mother's voice cracked as she slapped my cheeks lightly. I gasped, finally dragging air into my lungs, as if I had been drowning. The room spun. Every breath felt like knives digging into my throat. I tried to speak, to warn them, to tell them what I had seen. But the words came out broken, raspy. My throat burned with every syllable. The black thing. It was here. They exchanged glances. My father frowned. "You were dreaming. A nightmare. You screamed so loud it woke the whole house." No. I shook my head violently, tears welling in my eyes. It wasn't a dream. It touched me. It was eating from the fridge. I saw it. I swear. My mother hushed me, stroking my hair as though I was a child. "Shh, you've been stressed. Maybe feverish. These things happen." But then my brother's voice cut through the silence, trembling and uncertain. "Baba, look at his neck." Everyone froze. I raised a shaking hand to my throat, where the pain throbbed deep and raw. My father slowly pulled my hand away and leaned closer, his face pale. My mother gasped and clutched her chest. 5 long, dark bruises stretched across my skin, fingers shaped, deep, as though something had gripped me with inhuman strength. This is not possible," my father whispered, his voice cracking in a way I had never heard before. I wanted to cry, to scream, to beg them to believe me. "You see it now, don't you? It wasn't a dream. It was real." My voice rasped painfully, each word a struggle. My mother refused to look at me. She turned away, muttering more prayers under her breath. My father tightened his jaw, as if holding back his fear, pretending strength for the rest of us. "It's just some reaction." Maybe he scratched himself. Maybe. But even as he spoke, his voice wavered. He didn't believe his own words. That day passed like a blur. My parents tried to go on as if nothing had happened. My father checked the locks. My mother sprinkled holy water across the house. My brother stayed silent, eyes always darting to me, as if he knew the truth, but dared not speak it aloud. The strangest thing was the mark itself. The bruises didn't fade. By evening, they had grown darker, more defined, as if the grip had only tightened in my absence of memory. Whenever I looked at my reflection, the outline of that monstrous hand stared back at me from my skin. My throat ached constantly, and every time I swallowed, I swore I could still feel its cold, dead fingers pressing into me. Night returned faster than I expected. The air turned heavy again, suffocating. My brother and I lay in our room, but sleep was impossible. Every creak of the house made me flinch. Every shadow on the wall seemed to stretch too long, twist too unnaturally. At one point, I caught my brother staring at me, his face pale, eyes wide open. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. The sound was faint, but unmistakable. From the kitchen, the fridge door creaked open. My blood ran cold. I clutched my brother's hand. We stared at the door, waiting, dreading, listening. The same wet, tearing sound echoed through the silence. Flesh, bone, chewing. It was back. But this time, it wasn't just me who heard it. The sound grew louder, wet, chewing, bones cracking between unseen jaws. My brother's grip on my hand tightened until his nails dug into my skin. His face was pale, trembling. We both knew it wasn't imagination anymore. My father appeared at the door, holding a flashlight. "What's happening?" he whispered sharply. My mother was behind him, clutching her scarf tightly around her shoulders. The entire house was awake, all of us standing in the dark hallway, staring toward the kitchen. The noise continued. Crunch, rip, slurp. It was slow, deliberate, like something was eating not out of hunger, but out of pleasure. "Stay here," my father said, voice firm though his hands trembled. He began walking toward the kitchen. The wooden floor groaned beneath his steps. The closer he got, the heavier the stench became: damp soil, rotten meat, and something far worse, a soreness that burned the throat. We followed, though fear paralyzed every step. When my father pushed the kitchen door, the beam of his flashlight cut through the darkness. What it revealed made my stomach churn. The fridge door was wide open. Packages of meat lay torn across the floor, blood dripping down the tiles. And crouched before the open fridge, was it? A black figure, hunched and trembling with unnatural movement. Its skin was not skin at all, but a shifting shadow, sometimes solid, sometimes smoke. Its long fingers dug into raw flesh, shoving it into a mouth too wide for a human face. Its eyes, when they turned toward us, were nothing but hollow pits, glowing faintly as though embers smoldered in a dead fireplace. The thing froze, its head jerking upward unnaturally fast. It had been caught. My father staggered back. My mother screamed. My brother and I clung to each other, our hearts hammering so violently it hurt. Then, with a guttural growl that shook the walls, the creature stood, taller than any man, its head scraping the ceiling. The shadow of its body stretched across the walls, reaching for us like countless hands. "Get back!" my father shouted, raising the flashlight like a weapon. The beam of light struck the figure, but instead of dispersing, the darkness seemed to absorb it, growing thicker, denser, swallowing the brightness whole. The bulb flickered violently and burst with a sharp pop. Darkness swallowed the house. That was when it moved. It lunged not with footsteps, but as though it dissolved into the air and reappeared closer. One moment it was across the room. The next its hand was reaching for me. Long fingers stretched out, cold and skeletal, curling toward my throat. I screamed. My mother screamed. My brother shouted my name. And just as those claws brushed my skin, my father shouted the name of Allah, his voice loud, desperate, commanding. The thing recoiled, hissing, its body trembling as if burned. For the first time, I saw fear in its hollow eyes. My father dragged us all into the living room, locking the doors behind us. But the banging started almost immediately. The creature slammed itself against the walls, against the doors, against the windows. Each impact rattled the house. Shadows seeped under the cracks, stretching across the floor like black veins. It wasn't going to stop. Finally, my father made the decision. He called for help. Within an hour, a hujur arrived, an old man with a long beard, carrying nothing but a Quran and a pouch of incense. His presence brought a strange calm, though outside, the banging continued. He walked through the house, whispering verses, sprinkling holy water across the corners, sealing the windows with his prayers. The air grew thicker, the shadows darker, as if the creature was being forced into a single place, trapped like a rat. When the hujur entered the kitchen, we followed behind, terrified. The figure was there again, pressed against the far wall, its body writhing, screaming without sound. Its face twisted, stretching, shifting between forms, sometimes human, sometimes beast, sometimes nothing but shadow. The hujur raised his voice, chanting verses louder, stronger. His words filled the house with a power, and not described, like fire without flame, like light without form. The creature thrashed violently, clawing at the walls, clawing at its own skin, as if trying to tear itself free. Then one final scream, a sound so sharp, so hollow, it pierced our ears and shook our bones. The lights flickered, the shadows shattered like broken glass, and the figure collapsed into itself, shrinking, folding, dissolving into nothing but smoke. Silence. The house felt different, lighter, the smell was gone, the air was breathable again. But when I touched my throat, the mark was still there. 5 finger-shaped bruises, deep and black, etched into my skin as if burned there forever. The hujur turned to me, his face grim. "You were marked," he said. "Something from the mountain claimed you. It wanted to take you. It failed, but the scar will remain." He warned me to follow strict rules, prayers before sleep, never wandering alone at night, never returning to that mountain again. We listened, we obeyed, and from that night onward, the creature never returned. But sometimes, when the house is quiet, and the lights are out, I still feel it. The pressure on my throat, the unseen eyes watching me, as if it never truly left. The end. Did you enjoy the story? Let us know in the comments. And if you liked it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Horror Dream. Want more stories like this? Subscribe to The Horror Dream, and we'll bring you more darkness, just for you. If you enjoy a little chill down your spine, stick around, like, share, and hit that subscribe button, right here on The Horror Dream. Your support keeps us going, so stay with us. Subscribe to The Horror Dream for more spine-tingling tales.